Hello everyone and welcome back. In the last couple of lessons we have implemented our select lessons page selector that we need to query the store here in our load lessons method. The goal is to see if the page is already loaded in memory or not. Let's then apply here our selector. We're going to query the store by using the ngrx select operator. We are going to pass it here the select lessons page selector that we have just created. So the first argument that we need to pass to this selector factory function is going to be the course ID, and the second argument is going to be the page. So this is going to give us back an observable which will emit the page itself in case the page is present. Now let's see what we need to do in a couple of different cases. If the page is already present in memory in the store, then we just need to return it to the material data table by emitting the lessons using the lesson subject. On the other hand, if the lessons page is not yet present in memory, then we need to load it somehow. So we're going to decide in which of the two cases we are by using here the tap operator. So we are going to define here a function that takes as the first argument the lessons that are getting emitted here via this selector. So this is an array of lessons. Let's start by checking if the data is present in the store. So let's see, is the lessons array length larger than 0? If that's the case, then we already have the lessons page on the store, so we don't need to send a request to the backend in order to load the lessons. Instead of calling the backend, we can go ahead and directly emit the lessons back to the data table by using the subject. So we are going to call next and we are going to emit here our lessons array. So this is the case when the data is already in the store, but what should we do if the data is not yet present? In that case, we are going to have to notify the store to inform the store that the data needs to be loaded. So for that, we have defined here in the beginning of this module this action lessons page requested. This is the action that we are going to need to dispatch to the store. We are going to call store.dispatch and we are going to pass in an instance of lessons page requested. Let's go ahead and create it. And here on the payload property, we are going to fill this in with the course ID and with the page. So with this, we have reported back to the store that this particular page was requested. The store now needs to go ahead and handle this action and call the backend and load the lessons page. We are going to be doing that using ngrx effects. Before implementing this new effect, let's first finish the implementation of the data source. The first thing that we notice here is that we are defining here an observable, but we are not returning it and we are not subscribing to it. So this code, just like it is, would not actually do anything because all observables need to be subscribed to in order to start emitting values. So we need to call here subscribe in order for this logic here to get executed. The next thing that we want to do is to add here some sort of error handling for our observable. What happens if something goes wrong here in any of this code? We need to still return something to the data source. Let's then add here a catch operator, and we're going to specify inside it that in case of an error, we're going to go ahead and emit back to the table the empty array. So let's create here an observable that returns the empty array. This observable that only emits one value and then completes is being created here with the rxjs of operator. And with this we have completed the implementation of our data source. So let's quickly summarize how the data source works. Our course component is going to instantiate the data source and it's going to pass it here to the material data table. Whenever the component needs a new page of data, either when the component gets initialized or via clicking here on the paginator, the component is going to call load lessons on the data source, and the data source is going to take care of loading the correct data. Instead of calling the backend, the data source is going to fetch the data from the ngrx store. If we have a look at the implementation of the lessons data source, we are passing here this observable to the material data table via connect, and in case that the material data table does not need the observable, then it's also going to call disconnect. This observable that gets passed here to the material data table is implemented here using the subject. So whenever we need to emit a new page, we simply call lesson subject.next, we pass in the page of data, and that is going to eventually reach the material data table. And with this, we have completed the implementation of our data source. What we're going to do next is we are going to implement the effect that is going to load the lessons page from the backend.